Hooke, the man who changed the course of World War II, was not a general, not a president, and not even a soldier. He was a quiet mathematician who rarely spoke above a whisper, and yet, without him, the world you know today might not exist. In the early years of the 20th century, long before computers filled entire rooms and decades before the internet connected continents, a young boy named Alan Turing was already thinking differently. Born in 1912 in London, he didn't quite fit in. He was awkward, shy, and often misunderstood by his peers. But inside his mind was something extraordinary, a way of seeing patterns where others saw chaos. By the time Turing reached university, Europe was already drifting toward darkness. Political tensions were rising, and whispers of war echoed through classrooms and city streets. But Turing's world was different. He was obsessed with numbers, logic, and the idea that machines could one day think. In 1936, he published a paper that would quietly change history. It introduced the concept of a universal machine, a theoretical device capable of solving any mathematical problem given enough time and instructions. At the time, few understood its importance, but that idea would later become the foundation of modern computing. Then, in 1939, the world erupted into chaos with the outbreak of World War II. As Nazi Germany swept across Europe, they relied heavily on a secret weapon, not tanks or planes, but a machine called Enigma. This device scrambled military messages into millions of possible combinations, making them nearly impossible to decode. German commanders believed their communications were unbreakable. They were wrong. Turing was recruited to a top-secret British facility known as Bletchley Park. Hidden in the English countryside, it became the nerve center of Allied code-breaking efforts. Thousands of workers, mathematicians, linguists, chess champions labored day and night to crack enemy codes. But Enigma was different. Each day its settings changed. Each message was a puzzle with billions of possible solutions. Traditional methods failed again and again. Time was running out. Allied ships were being sunk in the Atlantic. Lives were being lost, thousands at a time. Turing knew they needed something new. He began designing a machine, one that could think faster than any human. It wasn't sleek or modern, it was large, mechanical, and loud. They called it the bomb. The bomber didn't magically decode messages. Instead, it eliminated impossibilities at incredible speed. Where a human might take weeks to test combinations, the bomb could do it in hours. Still, success didn't come easily. There were moments when it seemed impossible. Nights when the team sat in silence, staring at machines that offered no answers. The pressure was immense. Every failure meant more ships destroyed, more soldiers lost. But Turing was relentless. He worked long hours, often alone, chasing patterns others couldn't see. He believed that no system created by humans could be truly random, that somewhere within the chaos there had to be order. And then, one morning in 1941, everything changed, a breakthrough. Using a combination of intuition, mathematics, and sheer persistence, Turing and his team finally cracked a version of the Enigma code. Suddenly, the Allies could read German messages, secret plans, naval movements, strategies. It was like seeing into the enemy's mind, but this victory came with a heavy burden. The Allies couldn't reveal they had broken Enigma. If the Germans discovered the breach, they would change their system immediately. So decisions had to be made, cold, calculated decisions. Sometimes they allowed attacks to happen. Sometimes they let ships sail into danger, all to protect the secret. Historians would later estimate that Turing's work shortened the war by at least 2 years. Millions of lives were saved, the course of history was altered, and yet when the war ended, there were no parades for Turing. His work remained classified. The world never knew his name. Instead, he returned to a quiet life, continuing his research into computing. He dreamed of machines that could learn, adapt, even think like humans, ideas that seemed impossible at the time, but today they define the modern world. However, Turing lived in a society that didn't accept him. In 1952, he was prosecuted for being homosexual, a crime in Britain at the time. Faced with imprisonment, he chose chemical treatment instead. It was humiliating, painful, and deeply unjust. The man who helped win the war was treated as a criminal. 2 years later, in 1954, Alan Turing was found dead in his home at the age of 41. His death was ruled a suicide. For decades, his story remained buried in secrecy. It wasn't until the 1970s that details of Bletchley Park began to emerge. Slowly, the world learned about the quiet genius who had helped defeat one of history's greatest threats. Today, Turing is recognized as one of the fathers of computer science. His ideas laid the groundwork for everything, from smartphones to artificial intelligence. In 2013, the British government formally pardoned him, but for many that apology came too late. Still, his legacy lives on, not just in machines, but in the idea that one person, even someone overlooked and underestimated, can change the course of history. Because in the darkest moments of war, when the world stood on the edge of collapse, it wasn't brute force or overwhelming power that turned the tide. It was a quiet mind, a pattern in the noise, and a man who refused to give up.